graphics on or photos on networks, accolades and certificates of the Pan-African SSI. Then I will point out a few Pan-African institutions, and we'll end the conversation with some concluding remarks. For the introduction, again, I'm Michael Adeyeye Oshin, and I'm a casual academic at the University of Western Australia, the School of Mathematics, Physics, and Computing. I'm also a diplomat from the European Union Science Diplomacy Alliance. I was a senior lecturer and researcher at the Sheridan College in Perth, Australia, and the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in South Africa. I'm a South African NRF rated researcher. That's like the CSRO. I also became a professor at the University of Namibia. I'm an alumnus of the Erasmus Mundus at the University of Montpellier, France, and the University of Cape Town, South Africa, where I obtained my PhD. I'd like to state that the views expressed here are not representing those of the past and current employers, of voluntary organizations, and relevant authorities where my vocations and skills are utilized. Existentialism and enlightenment. We would by now know some of the great philosophers that have spoken about enlightenment. Some of them Kant, Rousseau, Locke, Descartes. Descartes was the one that said, "I think, therefore I am. I am a thing that thinks." And there is also another philosopher that says that to be or not to be is to be. A good example of that will be the universe as it is claimed to be. We must understand that the universe is one. We are the universe, or you are the universe. You yourself, the universe is pretty much you in a reverse. And again, there was also this philosopher that says that all that I know, I have learned. So we're pretty much into vessels, just being fed with data that became information, and we began to compartmentalize them into good, bad, rich, poor, and so on. So on this note, I would want to point at some of good readings that could also shed some light on some of these things. One of those books I read was The Colonizer and the Colonizer by Herbert, and there is also The Oppressed and the Oppressor by Professor Paulo Freire. Existentialism is rather a form of philosophical inquiry that explores the problem of human existence. It is a philosophical movement that stresses individuals' unique efforts. In the table below is the classification or grouping of existentialism and enlightenment. So enlightenment focuses on philosophical rationalism and imperialism, while existentialism, on the other hand, focuses on experience and unanswered questions. In a nutshell, the Enlightenment age, more or less like the medieval times, had these philosophers that made us realize that what we are thinking, have been put into us in one form or the other through the media, through the environment we have, and we have to question them. And at the same time, as much as we apply rationalism and pluralism to them, there is also this movement, the socialism movement, that says, there are still unanswered questions, and the rational thought cannot only answer them. It is on this note that I would want to say that most of the things I was talking about here are generalized thoughts. So again, we take it, or I take it, and I would want you also to take it as we have learned these things in one form or the other, we've compartmentalized them. But at the same time, if we have to generalize them, we understand much more the information that is being passed across, where we have, where we're going, and what we can make do of ourselves. At this point, I would also want to generalize the terms Aboriginal, Indigenous, Natives, and Africa all as one. They refer to as Pan-African entities. They are all being confronted with challenges that pose realities and demands occasioned by domineering market economy. And for them to overcome these challenges and become self-actualizing, they need breathtaking speed, high-tech revolution, and dynamic technological inventions. They have to confront these with headlong solutions that are embedded in African reality. And so when I talk about the indigenous people, terrestrial islanders, Aboriginal, I'm also referring to Africans. We share the same traits and experience the same issues. Pan-African SSI stands for the Pan-African Strategic Studies Initiative. It's a group of people or community in Australia reaching out to all people across the globe. They support the First Nation refugees, all races, and the LGBTI, and so on. The association advances religion, sustains ethnic culture and Aboriginal heritage, fosters knowledge and skills acquisition. These are principal objects. Again, the African entities or Pan-African entities, are in a huge challenge with the global players. They are faced with political, economical, and sociocultural challenges. And these traditional institutions, are also faced with unrestness, and so they have to endure peace and stability wherever they are and fight to turn up for them. The science diplomat at the center working hard to revisit works of the pre and post African scholars and heroes, organize conferences on current issues on African studies and infrastructural growth. At the same time, the focus on also educating the people as opposed to domesticating them. It's cool we know that all that we have acquired so far have been domestication, not education. We are meant to serve, and we have also to now use our knowledge to do what it is that meets our individual goals. The African strategy is based on 5 themes, and so we are focusing pretty much on these 5 themes: the globalization and integration, financing African developments, leadership developments, regional peace, stability, and security. These are some of those areas that we're focusing our efforts on in the organization. And I like to say that some of our current efforts include online education. So we have a learning management system where students across the globe enroll for courses, be it in business, information technology, first aid, and they do these courses and they get graded and hand out certificates. At the same time, they get to participate in some real life projects. Some of them had been involved in translating contents from one language or particular English language to indigenous languages. Some of them have also been involved in some empirical research works. They again have the opportunity to acquire, skills, information technology skills, and so on. At the same time, the charity, I must say it's a charity, also offers technical solutions. One of them is a resource which is pretty much like Science Hub. I'm an academic and I'm not supposed to be promoting Science Hub, but I'm trying to let us know that what's also been provided by them. It's like a solution similar to science. So, yes, for the Pan-African SSR footprints, here is a map showing where the staff members, the partners or students have come from to date, have partners in Canada, also in college, partners in London, or staff member in London. We've got students, mostly from Africa. And, these are countries like Nigeria, South Africa, Swaziland, Liberia. We've also had a few here in Perth. We've got partners in Johannesburg or Pretoria, South Africa. And we are growing. For some of the accolades, now on the I don't know if you can hear me, too. I just had recording in progress. Just starting out.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just keep going.
Shall I start all over again?
No.
Oh, okay. So I could just ignore it.
Yeah, thank
all
you.
Right. All right. On the left-hand side is a certificate from the European Science Diplomacy course that the institution participated in. And here shows a website screenshot from one of our partners, where we focus on language skills development, developing productivity tools in indigenous languages. Talking about Pan-African institutions, there are several of them across the globe. There are quite a number of them in Australia. And I like to say that the Pan-African institutions work very hard to provide the indigenous knowledge. We perhaps know of the term Ubuntu, one, and we at this point cannot but refer to the founding fathers, the philosophers, of the African roots, like Webb de Vries, Marcus Garvey. And we also have the revolutionary African leaders. One may want to think that why should they be included amongst those set of people? Well, today we are talking about the indigenous people being oppressed, or the African nation being colonized. The knowledge is there and it has to be shared with the world so that we understand and we move together as one with the entities or the states in order to forge ahead and make progress as humanity. It is on this note that we are calling for the decolonizing of education, and this is something that has been, called for both here in Australia, South Africa, in North America, South America as well. Yes, it's true that education today has been dumbed down. Again, we've been domesticated, not educated, and it's on this note that there is a call for the state to truly teach the trivium and quadrivium, the seven liberal arts. This is something that has been long awaited and it's been long called for. The seven liberal arts, and in this case, I'm talking about the grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy, and astronomy. All of these make seven liberal arts and the core of education. But unfortunately, they're not being taught in the elite schools, and so many of us today, and particularly the young ones growing up, are just going to the schools, and that's why we see people beginning to teach their words or children at home. Yet the contents are not there. Not everyone has the privilege of having these contents. Again, there is a call for teaching and learning indigenous languages. We know quite well of effort in the Northern Territory where schools there were teaching indigenous languages, and the indigenous people were grasping and making progress in their education. It's quite unfortunate that this is not being continued. However, we are still calling for this. And that's why I said that the problems of the indigenous people in Australia here pretty much are the same as those of the Africans that have now been here. There is a need for the indigenous languages to be spoken, wherever people are, and they must be able to confidently speak this language. An effort to quench or discourage the ability to speak these languages is more or less like inflicting the people, with a language disease. And being monolithic, monolithic speaker, it's more or less like being language deficient, and again very challenged with a language. So it's more or less like saying that everyone is disabled. If you speak one language, you're disabled in speaking multiple languages. I beg your pardon, but that's a language disease. And so again, we have to encourage speaking multiple languages. And the people that have, been taught or brought up in this non-Anglophone language have acquired the skills and have to be well respected and treated. About religion, there are states religions, as we all know them, exist in various forms. Started from Confucianism. Christianity of today is Confucianism, and it is now being seen in the ACNC that the indigenous religion is being recognized under the classification indigenous religion and spiritual beliefs. And I would want to say that there are always indigenous-based organizations that have struggled really hard, to exist and survive in these states or globe. One of them is the Celestial Church. Now, the Celestial Church is a white garment church, and before being a white garment church, I would imagine that when it started out in Australia, Celestial Church of Zion, it wasn't, having a congregations are wearing white garment. However, it never thrived in South Australia. Only for it to thrive in Africa, and today it's being seen across the globe. But yet, we also have to attribute its existence, to the Celestial of Zion, where it started out from. Again, this is what I meant by saying, enlightenment or industrialism. You just have to be generalized, or if the founding fathers of the Church of Zion want to say that it's not the same as the Church of Christ, then we're looking at so what are they worshiping, and that brings in the God debates. There are people that are saying that God does not exist, school of thought, and if people are interested in wanting to know more about this, you want to look at some of the great teachers like Christopher Hitchens, which now late, Sam Harris, John Darwin, and Helen Watts. I would also need to recognize the Masonic brothers that they believe in the divine architect. So yes, we are beginning to see the states, recognizing the indigenous religion, the beliefs and so on. And one can not but think that, okay, this is now again being regularized, and states would have to make sure that it has to be monetized. For concluding remarks, I have presented a very ambiguous topic, brought about different matters. Amidst the bigger issues confronting the world, COVID-19, East-West power tussles, the indigenous affairs usually falling into cracks. But the fact remains that Africans, indigenous people, natives, Torres Strait Islanders, are all dying of hunger. There is also this evil genius work going on. We're the best of the best from this African countries or continents or North America and so on have been brought into encode the first world, and they rather have to compete in a world where they are not being recognized, and this is more or less like being jailed. And so you can imagine, you tend to live in a world where you're more or less like being in prison, and you can't get the education, you can't get a job there. And the jobs again, you get to see where there are calls for job opportunities, and they've been stated that the individuals must have XYZ. Yet, the XYZ, the people that would have the XYZ, they never had the opportunity to obtain it. And the people that have now had it, they're saying that, okay, they are not being classified as, the indigenous. So at this point in time, dissociating these people, labeling them Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islanders, Africans, and so on, particularly when it comes to employment and educational opportunities, is an act of disempowering them, divide and conquer, let them continue to be who they are, and more or less the Black eugenics. It's therefore necessary that everyone, rise up. The global powers, the African leaders, and so on, individuals, not-for-profit organizations, need to canvas and adopt, solutions that have been presented, and also work collectively as one. All of these, again, point at science diplomacy. And science diplomacy is just one of those arms of diplomacy by which a state is merited. And we understand that the strength of a state is being measured based on the military power, diplomacy power, or diplomatic power, beg your pardon, and the administrative power. So there is a need to continue conversing, there's a need to continue discussing, and enlightening people about all of this. Yes, some of the reactionary efforts have been presented here. So you may just go out there, seeing this social organization, not knowing what really it stands for, but you need to understand that a reactionary effort, an organization, that canvases to ensure that the African reality is being maintained, that the people are also being recognized, and that they gain their own sense of entitlement. It is on this note I would say thank you, for the opportunity. The oppressor is still there, oppression is still active, can wear different hats, come in different flavors. But the people, again, they don't necessarily need to be white, black, and so on. These are all labels that are meant to, again, dissociate people. People, if you can understand that we're one, we can collectively fight and make sure that we live in a united world. Thank you.